Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a universe that's just foundational for sci-fi. Frank Herbert's original 6 Dune books.
Right. A massive undertaking. You've given us a whole lot of material summaries, reviews, bits of analysis.
Yeah, quite the stack. And our mission, really, is to sift through it all.
Yeah.
Cut through the spice dust, you could say.
Ah, nice one.
Yeah.
They get to the core of what makes this saga so huge, so intricate, and honestly, why it still feels so relevant.
Exactly. We're not just doing plot summaries here, are we?
No, definitely not. Dune's famous for its layers, ecology, religion, politics, philosophy. It's it's immense. Herbert built this whole universe on big ideas.
So we want to pull out the essential bits from these first 6 books, give you a real feel for the journey, the themes, the big questions he was grappling with.
That's the plan. Make sense of the saga's foundation.
Perfect. So where else can we start but Arrakis? Dune itself, the desert planet.
Arrakis is everything in that first book. It's brutal. It's unforgiving.
And it's the only place you can find the spice melange.
The single source. And spice isn't just, a drug. It's the key. Interstellar travel depends on it. The guild navigators need it to fold space.
Plus, it extends life, unlocks psychic abilities, prescience.
Yeah, it's literally the most valuable thing in the galaxy, period.
So controlling Arrakis, controlling the spice, that's ultimate power, essentially.
Absolutely. And the first book throws us right into this vicious power struggle, this ancient feud between two great houses, Atreides and Harkonnen.
We get Duke Leto Atreides, his concubine Lady Jessica, who's also Bene Gesserit, and their son, Paul. They get assigned to Arrakis.
But it smells like a trap from the start.
Oh, completely. Orchestrated by the truly vile Baron Harkonnen.
With the Emperor, Shaddam IV, secretly backing him, they set up.
Duke Leto's killed, House Atreides is basically wiped out.
But Jessica and Paul manage to escape. Against all odds, they flee into the deep desert, the really harsh parts.
And their survival there hinges on their Bene Gesserit training, right?
Critically, the mental discipline, the wording way combat, the voice, all of it is essential just to stay alive out there.
Which leads them directly to the Fremen, the native people of Dune.
And the Fremen are incredible. They haven't just survived this lethal environment, they've mastered it. Living in sieges, conserving water religiously, riding the giant sandworms.
Shai-Hulud.
Exactly. Now, what's really fascinating is how Paul and Jessica connect with them. It ties back to the Bene Gesserit's long-term plans.
You mean their breeding program, the Kwisatz Haderach?
That, yes, they're trying to breed a male superbeing,
Right.
but also the Missionaria Protectiva.
Ah, the religious engineering, planting myths and prophecies.
Precisely. They seed these legends in isolated cultures across the galaxy. So if a Bene Gesserit or their offspring ever needs refuge or wants influence.
They can step into a pre-made messianic role.
Exactly. So Paul and Jessica, with their strange abilities, surviving the desert, they unknowingly fulfill Fremen prophecies planted centuries ago.
That Kwisatz Haderach idea is so central. This male Bene Gesserit who can bridge space and time.
And access both male and female ancestral memories. Something Reverend Mothers can't do.
The Sisterhood suspected Paul might be it, but maybe too soon, before they could control him.
That was definitely their fear. Which brings us to that early scene, the Gom Jabbar.
Oh, intense. The test with the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohayim.
The test of humanity, facing unbearable pain purely through willpower to prove you're not just an animal reacting to stimulus.
And Paul endures pain far beyond what anyone expected, especially for a boy.
It proves his humanity, yes, but it also screams that he's something more, capable of incredible focus and control, potentially the one they've been breeding for.
And he wasn't just trained by the Bene Gesserit, he had Mentat training too.
Absolutely, a human computer, since actual thinking machines were banned after the Balarian Jihad. So he has that analytical power.
Plus the Bene Gesserit arts, his noble background, he's uniquely equipped even before Dune.
The Arrakis unlocks the rest. Integrated with the Freeman, the constant exposure to spice.
It awakens his prescient abilities massively.
Yeah. He gets adopted by the Freeman, takes the name Wad Dib, becomes their leader, trains the Fedaykin commandos.
And realizes they see him as the Lisan al-Gab, their voice from the outer world, their messiah.
And this is where Herbert really starts to turn the hero trope on its head.
So?
Because as Paul gains this immense power, his prescience shows him something awful.
The jihad.
A galaxy-spanning holy war, fought in his name by his fanatical Freeman legions, billions dead. It's this terrible future he sees locked in almost unavoidable.
So the hero's rise is immediately tainted by this horrific consequence he foresees but can't seem to prevent.
Exactly. He haunts him throughout the rest of the book. He's trapped by his own vision.
The climax of Dune is just epic, Paul leading the Freeman assault on the capital,
Riding sandworms into battle.
while his sister Elia, the preborn one,
Right, born with full consciousness and ancestral memories after Jessica underwent the spice agony while pregnant.
Elia confronts and kills the Baron Harkonnen, her own grandfather, technically.
Yeah, it's grim. And Paul faces the Emperor, Shaddam IV. He outmaneuvers him politically, defeats his champion in a duel.
Forces him to abdicate.
And Paul takes control. He controls Arrakis, the spice, the guild. He marries Princess Irulan, Shaddam's daughter, cementing his claim. He is the new emperor.
Wow. So the first book sets up this incredible world, this epic story, but it's packed with ideas. What are the main takeaways?
Well, Dune is fundamentally about power, isn't it? How it corrupts even people with good intentions.
And the critique of the Messiah figure is huge. Paul isn't a straightforward hero.
Not at all. He's tragic. His victory unleashes something terrible. Then there's ecology, humanity's relationship with the environment.
The manipulation of religion.
Yep, as a tool of control, the dangers of charismatic leaders, exploitation of cultures, drawing on, real-world Arabic influences for the Fremen.
It really did set the stage for so much modern sci-fi.
It laid down so many tracks, yeah.
Okay, that's a heavy foundation. What happens after the hero wins? Let's get into Dune, Messiah, and Children of Dune.
All right, Dune and Messiah is different, much tighter, more claustrophobic almost. It jumps forward about 12 years.
And it focuses on the fallout, the reality of Paul's rule.
Exactly. The pressure, the paranoia. It's really about the conspiracies against Emperor Paul Muad'Dib.
Who's plotting against him?
Pretty much everyone with an axe to grind. The Bene Gesserit, who've lost control of their Kwisatz Haderach, the old Imperial House, House Carino, the Spacing Guild, chafing under his thumb, and the Tleilaxu.
Ah, the genetic manipulators. What's their angle?
They're crucial. They're masters of biotech, especially creating goulas, clones.
Clones who can potentially regain the original's memories?
That's the key. They gift Paul a gula named Hate, a clone of his loyal friend Duncan Idaho, who died in the first book.
A poison gift, I'm guessing?
Absolutely. Hate is part of a very complex Tleilaxu plot, possibly conditioned to kill Paul or break him psychologically. And weirdly, Hate starts developing his own kind of prescience.
And Paul's sister, Elia, she's older now.
Yes, and incredibly powerful. A reverend mother from birth, essentially. But the Bene Gesserit call preborn, like, her abominations.
Why? What's the danger?
They're vulnerable to being overwhelmed, possessed by the personalities within their ancestral memories. They lack a core self developed before gaining those memories.
That sounds unstable.
Extremely. And the Tleilaxu plot is deeply insidious. They use face dancers.
The shapeshifters.
Perfect shapeshifters who can even absorb memories and personalities. Undetectable. The plan involves Hate, a Tleilaxu dwarf named Bijaz, used for conditioning, and a face dancer called Skytail. It's psychological warfare.
So Paul's facing these external plots, but you mentioned internal problems too, among the Freemen.
Yeah, some of his original, most devoted followers are becoming disillusioned. The Empire brought wealth, cities, water. It's softening them, eroding the old ways.
They're losing their edge.
Exactly. Some resent the changes. Figures like Korba, once a Fidakan warrior, now a high priest, gets caught up in a conspiracy.
And Paul's prescience? How does that play out here?
It becomes an absolute curse. He gets blinded in an attack, a stone burner weapon.
Physically blind.
Yes. But his oracular sight remains perfect. He can see the immediate future, every conversation, every movement before it happens. To the Fremen, he looks even more godlike.
But for him,
it's a prison. He's locked onto one exact path, dictated by his vision. He can't deviate even slightly, or the vision fails and he's truly blind. He calls it living on a knife's edge.
that sounds unbearable. How does Messiah end?
Tragically, his concubine, Chani, is pregnant with twins. But Princess Irulan, Paul's official wife, has been secretly giving Chani contraceptives.
Trying to prevent a Fremen heir.
Yes, it causes complications. Paul, meanwhile, realizes the Tleilaxu plot hinges on triggering the Duncan Gola's original memories through intense emotional stress, like Paul being killed or Chani dying.
And Chani.
Chani dies in childbirth. Paul is devastated, but her death provides the trigger. The Gola does regain Duncan Idaho's memories and loyalty.
So the plot failed, but at a terrible cost.
Yes, and Paul, now truly blind without Chani's presence anchoring his immediate future vision, makes a choice. He walks into the desert alone, following Fremen tradition for the blind,
Presumed dead.
leaving the Empire and his newborn twins to Elia's regency. Before he goes, though, using his son's fleeting sight, he kills the face dancer Skytail, and he orders the restored Duncan to kill the dwarf Baez, ending that specific threat.
Wow, Messiah really flips the script on the first book. The hero's triumph becomes this trap.
It's a total deconstruction. It shows the dark side of power, prophecy, and how revolutions can become rigid orthodoxies. Herbert's warning against saviors.
Which leads us right into Children of Dune, 9 years later.
9 years, Aaliyah is regent, ruling the empire. But the focus shifts hard to Paul's twins, Leto II and Ganima.
And they're not normal kids.
Not even remotely. Preborn, like Aaliyah, but maybe even more aware, more connected to those millions of years of ancestral memory. They act ancient, wise beyond imagining.
And Aaliyah, how's her regency going?
Badly. She finally succumbs to abomination, the possession that Bene Gesserit feared.
Who takes her over?
In a truly horrific twist. It's the ego memory of her grandfather, Baron Harkonnen. He's ruling through her, seeking revenge.
Oh, that's dark. What about Arrakis itself?
It's changing. Paul's terraforming plans are working. There are clouds, rain.
Which sounds good, but for the Freemen.
It's destroying their culture. The harsh desert forged them. Now they're moving to cities, getting softer. Their whole way of life is eroding. Even someone like Stilgar feels it, longs for the old certainties.
And Lady Jessica returns, Paul and Aaliyah's mother.
After 20 years away, Aaliyah, controlled by the Baron's persona, is terrified of her mother's power and Bene Gesserit insight.
Jessica senses something's wrong.
Deeply wrong. She starts training Ferrodin, the heir of the deposed House Carino, possibly grooming an alternative to Aaliyah's increasingly erratic role.
But the core of this book is Leto II, right? Paul's son.
Absolutely. He feels the weight of all those lives inside him, sees the prescient paths. He sees the same ultimate doom his father saw, humanity stagnating and eventually going extinct.
But unlike Paul, he decides to act.
He decides he must take the one path Paul refused, a terrible path, but one he believes is necessary for humanity's ultimate survival. He calls it the Golden Path.
What does that involve?
Becoming a monster, a tyrant. He deliberately starts a metamorphosis. He coats his skin in sand trout larvae.
The creatures that become sandworms.
Exactly. They bond with him, forming a living second skin. It begins his transformation into a human sandworm hybrid, gives him immense strength, longevity, a deep connection to the planet, but seals his fate. He becomes the worm god.
To what end? What's the goal of this transformation in the Golden Path?
We see that unfold over the next book, but essentially it's millennia of enforced peace and stagnation under his absolute rule, designed to ultimately save humanity from itself.
How does Children wrap up?
With Leto and Ganima executing a complex plan to secure their future, dealing with Aaliyah's possession, and setting Leo firmly on his path, he escapes into the desert to continue his transformation, having outwitted his enemies.
So Children of Dune explores abomination, the cost of change, destiny versus choice, and sets up this millennia-long tyranny.
Precisely. It bridges the gap between Paul's tragedy and Leto's terrible solution.
Which brings us to God, Emperor of Dune, and a huge time jump.
Massive. 3,500 years. Leto II is now the God Emperor, ancient, monstrous in his sandworm form, ruling the entire known universe.
And this is the Golden Path, his reign.
This is the Golden Path in action. 3.5 millennia of absolute enforced peace. He became the ultimate tyrant to fundamentally change human nature, to instill a deep instinctual aversion to such centralized control.
So when he's finally gone,
Humanity will scatter, explode outwards into the unknown universe, diversifying so much that no single power, no single prescient vision could ever control or destroy them all again. That's the goal.
how does he maintain control for so long?
Sheer power, his sandworm body, his control over the dwindling spice supplies of the Tlilax who are working on artificial spice in secret, and his army, the fish speakers.
All female?
Exclusively female, fanatically loyal, he bred men for peace and women for war, reversing traditional roles.
And Duncan Idaho keeps reappearing.
Yes. Leto constantly has Tlilaxu Gulas of Duncan created. He talks with them, tests them, argues with them, and inevitably they rebel against his tyranny, and he has them killed again and again.
Why? Companionship, a reminder of humanity.
It's ambiguous. Maybe all of the above, maybe to test for certain traits. The Duncan in this book sees Leto as utterly corrupt.
And Leto uses technology from Ix, despite the Butlerian Jihad's legacy against thinking machines.
He does. Another paradox. He uses Ixian navigation devices, memory recorders, blurring the lines. The Ixians are even trying to build a machine to replace guild navigators, to replicate prescience mechanically.
A key figure here is Siona Atreides, right?
Crucial. A descendant of Ghanima, Leto's sister. She's leading a rebellion. But her real significance, she's genetically invisible to Leto's Praesians.
So she represents the future he's trying to create, humanity beyond the reach of foresight.
Exactly. Her existence proves the Golden Path is, in a way, already working. She embodies the unpredictable future.
Does Leto have weaknesses? After 3,500 years.
Two main ones. Water is lethal to his sandworm body, and he's still capable of love. He develops deep feelings for Chouinari, an Ixian ambassador designed specifically to appeal to his buried humanity.
And Siona and Duncan plot against him, using the water vulnerability.
Yes. But it's hinted Leto knows, even subtly guides it. His death is the culmination of the Golden Path. It's time for humanity to be set free, violently.
So he orchestrates his own demise.
It seems that way. He dies when his conveyance falls from a bridge into a river. His body dissolves, releasing the sand trout back into the planet, ensuring sandworms will return to Arrakis.
And his final words?
He tells Duncan and Siona his purpose, the scattering. Let humanity run, hide, diversify across all universes, become too numerous, too slippery for any single entity like him, or the unknown enemy he foresaw to ever control again. He reveals his hidden space stashes and leaves his journals.
God Emperor sounds incredibly philosophical. Tyranny as a tool for salvation.
It's challenging, yeah. Deep thoughts on sacrifice, love, deep time, the nature of humanity. The Golden Path is chilling.
Okay, Leto dies, the scattering happens, then another huge jump. To Heretics of Dune and Chapter House, Dune.
Thousands more years pass. The universe is completely different. Fractured.
What are the major powers now?
The old empire is a memory. Threats emerge from the scattering. Chief among them, the honored matrix.
Who are they?
An aggressive, violent matriarchal order. Extremely skilled fighters, prone to destructive rages. They seem to be fleeing something even they fear back into the old empire space.
And the Telexu.
Still around, still masters of biotech. They're now the main source of spice, made in their axolotl tanks, which are actually biological wombs, and their face dancers are perfect mimics, absorbing memories and personas completely.
What about the Bene Gesserit?
They're one of the few old powers left, but they're struggling, losing worlds to the honored matrix. They're forced back to their secret stronghold, Chapter House.
Which they're trying to turn into a new Dune.
Exactly. They need their own source of spice and sandworms. They're wary of the honored matrix, recognizing their power, but also their instability.
Who are the key players in these last books?
We have Mother Superior Darby O'Drade leading the Bene Gesserit, the descendant of Paul. Cautious, strategic. They also create a Gula of Bashar Miles Teg.
A legendary military commander from their past.
The greatest. They hope to awaken his genius. And when they do, it's more than they bargained for. An encounter with an honored matriarch weapon unlocks latent abilities in him. Superhuman speed and perception.
Moves faster than the eye can see.
Literally. Black blood, incredible reflexes, a living weapon.
And inevitably another Duncan Idaho Gola.
Of course. But this one is different. He's been bred by the Bene Gesserit, and he seems to carry the cumulative trauma and memories of all the thousands of Duncans Leto II killed.
That sounds intense.
He has visions. Strange visions of a thinking machine couple, entities behind a net. He suspects the honored matriarchs are fleeing something related to this. He becomes a mentat, resents the Bene Gesserit manipulation, but connects with.
Rebella, the captured honored matriarch.
Yes, she's brought into the Bene Gesserit, starts training as one of them, bridging the two orders in a way. Her relationship with Duncan is pivotal.
And Shiana, the girl from Arrakis.
Right. Arrakis is what Arrakis is called now. Shiana can instinctively control the sandworms. The Bene Gesserit see her as key to their plan for Chapter House. She's also an Atreides descendant and, like Siona before her, immune to prescience.
Lots of threads connecting back. What about the Tleilaxu secrets?
The Bene Gesserit capture the last known Tleilaxu master, Waf. O'Drade manipulates his deep religious beliefs to get the secret of the axolotl tanks. Now the Sisterhood can produce their own spice, and gulas, a huge advantage.
We also meet Rebecca, a wild Reverend Mother.
Yeah, from a Jewish sect that survived the scattering and developed similar abilities independently, shows how diverse humanity has become. Another Bene Gesserit, Lucilla, transfers her memories to Rebecca to preserve them.
So the Bene Gesserit strategy is multi-pronged. Create a new Dune on Chapter House with Shiana and a captured worm, learn Tleilaxu secrets, use Teg's abilities,
and prepare for the inevitable honored matriarch onslaught. O'Drade also plans for failure, gathering Bene Gesserit cells and sand trout far into the unknown, ensuring survival no matter what.
The conflict keeps escalating.
Dramatically. The honored matriarchs start destroying entire planets, including Arrakis. The original Dune is obliterated, gone forever.
Making Chapter House the only hope for sandworms?
The only hope. Teg uses his incredible speed in crucial battles, buying time.
How does Heretics end?
With Odrade luring the honored Matres into a meeting on Junction, knowing it's a trap, Teg makes a last stand. A suicidal defense.
A sacrifice.
A massive one. Using his speed, he allows Odrade, Shiana, Duncan, Murbella, who's now pregnant with Duncan's child, continuing that prescience immune line, and the last surviving sandworm to escape on a no-ship.
Invisible depressions. Headed where?
Into the scattering. Into the unknown.
And Chapter House, Dune picks up right after.
Immediately. Odrade deals with internal Bene Gesserit politics while hiding from the honored Matres. Shiana starts releasing the sand trout on Chapter House, beginning the long terraforming process.
And Duncan and Murbella are out there on the no-ship.
Yeah, Duncan keeps having those disturbing visions of the old couple, the enemy beyond the net, the ones the honored Matres are fleeing.
That's how it ends.
That's how Herbert's original saga ends. Unresolved. The Bene Gesserit rebuilding, the enemy's still out there, Duncan and Murbella heading into uncharted territory, humanity scattered, facing unknown threats and potentials. No neat bow.
Reading through the listener sources, you can see why these books stick with people. The story, the insane lore, as one review put it.
Absolutely. The world building is legendary. And the themes just resonate. Ecology, politics, religion, consciousness.
The Atreides saga, the Duncan-Idaho through line, it's epic character work across millennia.
And so many readers pointed out how scarily relevant it all feels today. The warnings about leaders, control, environment.
Though, fair point, some sources mention the prose could be dense. Hard to read or clunky dialogue sometimes came up alongside wonderful read.
It definitely demands something from the reader, yeah. But the payoff is those huge ideas.
Yeah.
It's transcendent sci-fi.
Okay, so we've covered a vast sweep. Arrakis, Paul's rise and fall, Alia's tragedy, Leto's golden path, the scattering, the honored Matres. Thousands of years.
It's an incredible journey through ideas about power, belief, humanity's place in the universe, evolution.
Themes that, like you said, feel intensely current. The dangers of charismatic leaders, environmental consequences, manipulation of faith, the future of humanity.
Herbert was asking huge questions using this amazing sci-fi setting. Questions about control, survival, destiny, free will.
Thinking about this whole arc, this deep dive, what's the big thing you think listeners should chew on? What insight about us, maybe, does this whole epic offer?
Well, consider that ending. Or non-ending. The sources highlight Duncan's visions, that old man and woman behind the net, powerful enough to make even the honored Matres run scared. Who are they? What forces were unleashed or encountered in the scattering?
And what does it say that Herbert's final word wasn't resolution, but dispersal?
Exactly. Humanity scattering beyond control, beyond prediction, into countless unknown futures. Maybe the ultimate safety isn't in control, but in unpredictability. In becoming too vast and varied to ever be contained or destroyed by any single force, known or unknown. What's really waiting for us out there, beyond the net?